Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into capturing dessert in a glass. When I was reading through the source material for this, I was absolutely amazed by how crafting natural sweet wines beautifully marries strict scientific precision with the totally unpredictable magic of nature. So we're going to explore exactly how the world's most incredible natural sweet wines are crafted, taking a single grape from the vine and transforming it into an absolute masterpiece of flavor.
Think about the last time you had a truly phenomenal dessert wine. It's thick, it's luscious, and it just coats your palate with this intense, complex sweetness. But here's the real mystery. Where does all of that incredible sweetness actually come from? Because the very best winemakers aren't just dumping a bag of processed sugar into a vat. No way. Achieving this level of flavor naturally requires something much more profound, and honestly, a lot more difficult.
Section 1. The secret of sweetness.
Okay, to really understand this, we have to define our terms first. Natural sweet wines are strictly obtained from exceptionally ripe grapes that have a naturally high and concentrated sugar content. And this is the absolute foundation of our explainer today. We aren't talking about artificial additives here. We're talking about pushing a grape to its absolute physical limits, hitting a highly specific, optimal level of natural ripeness, where those sugars are incredibly dense and the aromatic flavors are fully unlocked.
That brings us to part 2, measuring perfect maturity. So before picking a single grape, winemakers actually have to step out of the role of farmer and act a bit more like rigorous scientists. When they go out into the vineyard, they're tracking 4 vital signs, which are called maturity indices. We're looking at sugar content, acidity, pH levels, and polyphenol concentration. This is the specific magic formula required to predict a perfect sweet wine harvest. The polyphenols are what give us that structural and aromatic complexity, while the other 3 parameters dictate the core balance of the whole wine.
Now, what's truly staggering here is the sheer volume of sugar required. Winemakers are looking for a massive 200 to 300 grams of sugar per liter of must. That is a gigantic concentration, and it's absolutely necessary because that high volume of natural grape sugar is exactly what will eventually give us the characteristic, rich sweetness of the final product.
But here's the catch, and this is a crucial point. Massive sweetness needs massive balance. If you just have 300 grams of sugar, your wine is going to taste like a cloying, heavy pancake syrup. To achieve real harmony in the glass, the winemaker needs a total acidity of 5 to 7 grams per liter of tartaric acid and a very precise pH ranging from 3.2 to 3.6. These specific acidity and pH levels, they're the secret weapon. They slice right through the heavy sugar, providing a freshness and liveliness that keeps you coming back for another sip. To actually track all of this out in the field, viticulturists use a brilliant little tool called a refractometer. Instead of hauling hundreds of grapes back to a lab every single day, the winemaker takes this portable instrument right out into the vineyard. They just squeeze a drop of juice onto the glass to physically verify that massive sugar concentration by seeing exactly how the light bends and refracts through the liquid. It's science on the go. And right alongside it is the pocket pH meter, which gets dipped directly into the freshly crushed grape must. This really grounds all that heavy enological science we just talked about into the tangible, everyday reality of the winemaking process. This little tool is what guarantees that the wine won't just be a sugar bomb, but will actually be perfectly balanced.
Section 3. The art of the harvest. Once the data tells the winemaker the grapes have finally hit those perfect maturity indices, we transition from science to action, and the timing here is absolutely critical. To lock in that carefully measured sugar and phenolic maturity, winemakers utilize 3 highly specialized harvesting techniques. We've got late harvest, multiple pass harvesting, and botrytized harvest. Multiple pass, for instance, is an unbelievable labor of love. Workers can't just strip the whole vine at once. They have to selectively pick only the absolute most mature grapes, which means they're literally visiting the exact same vines multiple times over a period of weeks.
The first method, late harvest, relies on a ton of patience and honestly some serious nerve. These grapes are left hanging on the vine much longer than usual. This requires a prolonged, dry autumn. The winemaker is essentially taking a huge gamble here, risking diseases or bad rot destroying the entire crop. But the reward? Well, the extra time on the vine boosts the alcohol potential during fermentation and develops deep, intense flavor notes of grapefruit, spices, and honey.
But get this. Sometimes rot is exactly what they want. You might see some wrinkled, fuzzy bunches out in the vineyard, and that is actually Botrytis cinerea, affectionately known as noble rot.
I know, it sounds absolutely crazy to intentionally drink wine made from rotting fruit. But in certain climates, this is literally the ultimate prize.
As our source beautifully explains, this beneficial fungus can affect the grapes, dehydrating them, and further concentrating the sugars and flavors. This rot is actually a winemaker's best friend. It penetrates the grape skin, allowing water to evaporate out, which shrinks the grape and leaves behind incredibly dense, hyper-concentrated sugars. It uniquely elevates the complexity of the wine in a way that normal ripening simply cannot replicate. It's pure magic.
Part 4. The magic of drying.
For some of the world's most famous sweet wines, like Pedro Jimenez in Spain or Vinsanto in Italy, the journey doesn't end at the harvest. There are two main methods to achieve this final dehydration: sun-drying and raisining. It's a pretty clear contrast between ancient tradition and modern control. Sun-drying is an outdoor process completely reliant on the local microclimate to naturally evaporate water. Raisining, on the other hand, moves the grapes indoors. It relies on controlled, ventilated chambers, making it far less dependent on the unpredictable whims of the weather. And you can really see the stark contrast here between the grueling physical labor of sun-drying, with workers carefully laying grapes out in the direct sun on the dry earth, versus vertical raisining, where workers are hanging the bunches inside a heavily ventilated structure. Both achieve dehydration, for sure, but through entirely different environmental philosophies. If a winemaker does choose the traditional sun-drying route, the environmental demands are just intense. They need direct solar exposure and very low relative humidity. Plus, they must have protection ready at a moment's notice from the rain. And it requires constant supervision. Workers literally have to go out and turn the bunches by hand. Just a tiny bit of unexpected rain or unwanted humidity can trigger the wrong kind of mold and completely ruin the entire batch. Whether done under the beating sun or inside a ventilated room, the goal is exactly the same: the physical transformation of the grapes. They lose massive amounts of water, causing them to shrink down and wrinkle into concentrated raisins. By losing that water weight, they're locking in those intense sugars, those crucial acids we talked about earlier, and some highly complex aromatic compounds.
So, all of this arduous work, the measuring, the perilous harvesting, the careful drying, it all leads to an incredible sensory reward. We're translating the clinical parameters of grams per liter and pH levels into the evocative flavors we actually taste in the glass. The drying process is exactly what gives these wines their signature, complex notes of raisins, rich honey, candied fruits, and deep, warm spices.
And that brings us to the final masterpiece: a beautifully poured glass of natural sweet wine. It's a beverage entirely defined by its rich body and intense flavor profile. It shows us that true sweetness isn't manufactured. It is earned. It's the result of exceptional patience, rigorous data tracking, and a very deep partnership with the forces of nature. So the next time you're enjoying a dessert wine and you taste those brilliant notes of honey and candied fruit, I want you to ask yourself, will you think of the precise refractometer readings, the intense labor under the beating sun, or the magical noble rot that made it all possible? There is an entire world of science and nature in every single drop. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.